Another big week in federal politics. Joining us to discuss it is the host of Insiders, Barrie Cassidy. Barrie, good morning.
Good morning.
And let's kick off with the news of today, which is the long-awaited productivity report into childcare. That terrible phrase, the barbecue stopper. This actually gets us now off raw politics into some really important policy.
This is a fascinating report. If it was to be adopted, it would be a real breakthrough in this sense, that it's about the redistribution of income. It really is about taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Under the recommendations is that people earning $60,000 or less would get 85% of their childcare payments paid as a direct subsidy to the provider. But as you get up over $200,000 to $250,000, you would only get about 20% of that subsidy, the cost of childcare reimbursed. So it actually does mean deep cuts for the wealthy, but it will be a much improved situation for people on lower incomes. Now, this, in a political sense, directly addresses some of the concerns in the 2014 budget, in the unfairness aspects of that. Scott Morrison, the Social Services Minister, who, by the way, is our guest on Insiders Sunday morning, did say on AM, keep in mind this is a report to government, it's not a government decision.
Yes.
But nevertheless, I think given the politics behind it as well as the income redistribution that goes with it, it'll be very tempting. And they will, I think, try and draw the Labor opposition in behind this to support it. And given the nature of it, you would think that would happen.
And yes. There have been arguments about what constitutes low income too, and I find it interesting that 130,000 is a good place to start here. They still get, families will still get 60% back.
Yep.
So there won't be that sort of side issue or a distraction around who's wealthy and who's not.
It's a graded means testing.
Right.
Yeah, graded means testing all the way down. It includes, by the way, nannies as well. Nannies at home. I'm not sure whether they'll pick up on that, but that's another aspect of it. But it's also a much leaner and more efficient system because it just involves the single subsidy, and you don't have to jump through all the loops.
So how difficult is it going to be for the entire coalition and all the aspects within the coalition to get behind the idea of this report?
There'll be arguments at every level on this, but I think that the broad concept, in fact, there's one suggestion in one of the newspapers this morning, that they might even go further and make it more generous, so that and then they'll say to the Labor Party, so we'll go more generous if you'll help us out in other areas.
Yep.
Now, my column on The Drum this morning talks about how consensus is almost dead in this country. Maybe this could revive it.
Gee, that'd be nice to see.
Wouldn't it?
I think I'd take it on virtually any topic at all.
Yep.
You're writing about the role of opposition as much as government in this one, Barrie.
Yeah.
You've been quite critical of what opposition stands for now.
Well, opposition's opposed, and that's all they do. And governments have this power, and they refuse to give it up. And I just think Australia, it's not a worldwide trend. I think Australia has the disease, and they've had it for a while. But on the economy, on climate change, there's just no attempt to reach out and help one another.
Or a sense of unity of purpose as elected officials in service of the public.
Yeah, and I draw the comparison with the UK, where the three political leaders have just signed up on climate change. Yeah. To a position that Al Gore said was a breakthrough situation.
It's a non-partisan issue in the UK.
It is now.
Yeah. And it's fully entrenched as a partisan.
They all have the same sentiments and the same objective.
Let's turn to another big issue, national security, and Tony Abbott putting that right back on the agenda as well. How are you reading this? Well,
national security will be the issue from Monday. Tony Abbott will be looking for new measures, and he'll be looking for support again across the aisle. The one, I think, the timing on this, though, might be a bit of a concern for him internally, because some of his backbenchers have been saying publicly that their constituents are saying, look, get back to bread and butter issues. This terrorism thing is not what people want to talk about. That's not what they're talking about. But nevertheless, it's the issue that he's chosen to start the new week.
That's where childcare fits in. That would be considered a bread and butter issue.
It sure would, and I think they'll be going flat out to talk that up over the weekend.
So what did you make of that video release that came through at the end of last weekend? And it was just a short statement. It was him putting it on the agenda, I guess.
Yeah. But again, I think it was the timing of that would have disturbed some of his colleagues. And also there's a suggestion this morning in the papers that some of his colleagues too are less than impressed with his remarks to Indonesia. They thought that he was a bit heavy-handed and may have set back some of the quiet diplomacy that was going on, led by Julie Bishop.
Although, as Ed Gannon pointed out this morning, he was reviewing our papers this morning from the Weekly Times. He said, look, in this febrile environment, he can't put a foot right. Any comment he makes, it's going to tick off someone on the backbench or someone who voted for that spill motion. They'll be the unsourced quote in the paper now, saying, we've lost faith in him.
He said himself he's going to be tested every day, and of course he will be, and that's the sort of excruciating situation that they've put him in, where he will be tested every day.
You can gauge political strategy by listening closely to the language that the ministers use. Barry, what are you picking up on the language change for the co-payments?
For the co-payment, it's now the value test or the value system. It's
the price signal.
And price signals anything but co-payment now is suddenly poisonous.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that it's poisonous to use the term co-payment, but that's the situation it came to.
Who comes up with the language tweaks inside these rooms in the meetings they have?
I think they have a competitive evaluation process, and they put co-payment up against a price signal, and the price signal won.
If only I knew what that phrase really meant. We should mention in passing Malcolm Turnbull's performance on Q&A last night. And again, there were unsourced quotes from the other side saying that it was outlandish and just not quite the done thing to put himself forward in that way and be acting in such a prime ministerial way on a show like Q&A.
The writing was on the wall when he turned up with an orange tie. He just doesn't run with a pack, does he?
Yeah, but he didn't have his leather jacket.
No, but then again...
So that was a change.
It's the pack that chooses the leaders, of course, so I don't know whether the orange tie was a mistake.
It wasn't a blue pinstripe through it, was it?
But it was Turnbull-esque, that's all you can say about it. It was, and then there's Tony Abbott out in the field with the backbenchers going up and down the country as well, back in Queensland. So it's... They're impressing in their own way.
Who gets your wooden spoon this week, Barry?
Oh, Chris Bowen, undoubtedly.
Why?
Not because he didn't understand the tax thresholds, but because he said he did, but he just didn't want to say. Look, my advice to Chris Bowen would be stay off quiz programs if that's your attitude.
And we've just been looking up online here, we will confess, all the marginal tax rates.
Right.
So there'll be a quick quiz at the end of the program, off air. Barry, nice to see you.
You too.
Have a great program on Sunday. And Scott Morrison, as Barry mentioned, will be with him on Insiders on Sunday morning. Don't miss that.